let's look at the next page and starting with problem A. Notice that problem A is different because we don't just have one big fraction on the top and one big fraction on the bottom. We actually have two pieces on the top and two pieces on the bottom. But let's see if we can turn it into one big fraction on the top and one big fraction on the bottom so that then we can do keep, change, flip. Because that would be the easiest way to do this. So in order to get one fraction on the top and one fraction on the bottom, we need to get a common denominator. So on top we have a 3 over x minus a 3, and on the bottom we have a 9 over x minus 3. Well, remember, the 3's are just 3 over 1. So the question is, what kind of common denominator should we get? Well, one denominator is an x and one denominator is a 1 for both the top and the bottom. The easiest common denominator to get is just an x. Well, that means the first fraction on top doesn't even need to change. The second fraction on the top then just needs to get multiplied by an x on the bottom and the top, which will give me a 3x on top. On the bottom piece, again, the best common denominator to get is an x because we have an x and a 1 again. So we'll leave the 9 over x as 9 over x because it already has the x, and we'll get a common denominator of x on the 3 over 1. Again, we'll do it the same way. We'll multiply the bottom and the top by an x to get the common denominator of x, but that gives us a 3x on top. Well, now that we at least have a common denominator, we can combine our fractions. Well, we've got, let's see, once we have a common denominator, let's see what this top will become. It'll become 3 minus 3x over x. Notice we cannot subtract the 3 and the 3x because they're not like terms. We can only just put them on the same fraction. On the bottom piece, we can do the same exact thing. We can take the 9 over x and the minus 3x over x and combine those. This will give us a 9 minus 3x over x because they have a common denominator. Again, you cannot actually subtract the 9 minus 3x because they aren't like terms. But at least I have one big fraction now on top divided by one big fraction on the bottom. So I can do the keep the top fraction. So if we keep the top fraction, it will stay as 3 minus 3x over x times, because we'll turn that division into multiplication. Remember, it's keep change. We're changing the division into multiplication. Flip. So we're going to take that bottom fraction and flip it. So that will become x over 9 minus 3x. Well, again, remember when you're multiplying, you can go ahead and reduce right away. Well, reducing, remember, means factor if you can. So is there anything that factors? Well, the top of the first fraction does factor. You can factor out a 3, which will leave you with 1 minus x. And notice the bottom of the second fraction does factor. You can also factor out a 3, which will leave you with 3 minus x. Now the question is, does anything cancel? And indeed it does. What can you cancel? Well, first of all, you can cancel out the x from the top and the bottom that match up, and you can cancel out a pair of 3's from the top and the bottom, which now leaves us with, let's see, what's left over? A 1 minus x and a 3 minus x. So our final answer here is a 1 minus x on top and a 3 minus x